Alright, let's go, because you know what I came in to do.
I don't get paid for overtime. I'm here to fight.
The WBA have mandated fighters before, and they haven't got their immediate title shot, and they haven't stripped that title holder for not fulfilling his obligation. Even recently, how long has Leo Santa Cruz had that WBA featherweight title, and he has the higher tier title? When's he going to make a defense? Leigh Wood is now the mandatory. He's won a few titles. He won the lower tier belt, and then he unified that lower tier belt with whatever strap Michael Conlan had, and is mandatory. What are they doing about that? So anything could happen. You know, Eddie might have a word with them, and they push Ramirez back. But Ramirez has been mandated to fight Bivol, and we'll see if it goes through straight away and Bivol fights Ramirez this year. I'd love to see it. I mean, your boy Ramirez is going to rehydrate to how much? Rehydrate to? Was he over the cruiserweight limit or something last time out? Yeah, it would be serious. But you have to ask why Eddie came out in public and offered BUATSI the title defense if he didn't clear it with the WBA that they wasn't going to mandate Ramirez. And you have to say it was unprofessional. Eddie already very unpopular with a lot of his British fighters on the Matchroom side of things. I don't know what BUATSI's going to make of this. Virgil Hunter, he might not be so pissed because he didn't want BUATSI to get a title shot yet. He didn't think he was ready. He didn't think he was ready for Bivol, Beterbiev, so he might not be too unhappy. But BUATSI, he might want to get paid. He might want to get on. He's not a young kid anymore. At the moment, Eddie doesn't seem flustered about Matchroom fighters looking to defect because they're not happy with certain things. He'll say, well, if they've got better opportunities over there, they should go because right now we've got higher priorities. That's his rebuttal to any criticism on that. But after a time, if this is a continuing trend, it could be problematic to the domestic cards he's putting on over here. It could be something that he needs to address. I remember Don Charles praying, God, don't let Derek be severely hurt after Dillian knocked him out. You see, there does get to a point when you're talking about pro-level heavyweights where you could argue that Wilder is the hardest puncher. You can make that argument. But there does get to a point that when any of the heavyweights lands on the sweet spot, perfectly timed punch power levels itself out. Now, it's yet to be seen, but you could argue that Wilder is a harder puncher than Povetkin. But could Wilder knock Dillian out any better than Povetkin did? These are valid questions. These guys are marksmen all across the board, and there's more than one marksman in the weight class. If your argument is Derek is an aging fighter slowing down and his punch resistance is waning, well, taking a fight with Dillian for a third time is not exactly a picnic or guaranteeing his neurological health, is it? And Dillian had him hurt a few times in the first fight. The only way Deontay Wilder could knock Derek out any worse is by killing him. That was a frightening knockout. But it's okay for Derek to fight Dillian. Look, let's keep it real. Pulev hurt Derek with a right uppercut, but Derek ate it, and he came back and he won the fight. Like, if they're going to line up Karanaki as Wilder's comeback opponent, and you're accepting of that, what, is Karanaki tougher than Pulev? Or Derek? Who, the same guy who folded twice against the Viking? Who are these heavyweights who can take Wilder on as a comeback opponent? If Derek Chisora can't, well then who can? You got Carl Frampton, who, you know, the other week was commentating that Jason Cunningham shouldn't be fighting Zolani Tete. There's other ways he could get a title shot. He could swerve, he could dodge and avoid Tete and get a title shot. And then after Joyce beat Christian Hammer, what did he say? Oh, there's no way Joyce should fight Deontay Wilder. So, unbeaten contender Joe Joyce shouldn't fight Wilder. Derek Chisora shouldn't fight him. So who should? Oh yeah, Adam Karanaki and Luis Ortiz. Derek knows what he's doing. Derek's a pro. He can look after himself. He's not going to ask you for any money to help pay his medical bills if Wilder does him as bad as you say he's going to do him. Yeah? Let Derek do what he's doing, man. It's all a bit overboard. Because if you're going to be reactionary and then call this out as a mismatch, what about Fabio Wardley's opponent on Saturday? What about the guy they served up for Nathan Gorman on Channel 5 the other Saturday? There's mismatches everywhere, where fighters could get hurt bad, with less experience and less capability than Derek. What about Christian Hammer? Was that a good opponent for Joyce the other week on BT? Let's not be reactionary and let's not just follow what everyone is saying. Remember, when you're talking about Joyce, you're talking about a mandatory challenger for the heavyweight title in his prime. Would you prefer to see Christian Hammer fight Joe Joyce or Derek Chisora? Let's not pretend that a lot of you wouldn't watch Wilder and Chisora, even if it's just to see Derek knocked out, or see if he can extend Wilder a few rounds and maybe pull off an upset. The truth is, even a 38-year-old version of Derek would still be one of Wilder's best opponents. His resume just doesn't cut it.
And everybody keeps saying retire and stuff. What the fuck are you talking about? Pulev is 4 years older. Nobody said to him retire. You retire, fuck you. Let Chisora do whatever the fuck he wants. You're gonna watch it. You know you're gonna watch it.
Derek's been knocked out by David Haye. Derek's been stopped by Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte, who has beat Robert Helenius, right? And he was stopped by Tyson Fury, Derek. So Dillian's beat Robert Helenius, but this is a suitable opponent for Wilder. Helenius has got stopped by Duhaupas, and Gerald from Washington knocked him out. So why isn't everybody screaming that this is unacceptable? Why ain't they all asking Helenius to retire? Helenius, who got a gift decision against Derek Chisora. A gift decision in his own country. This is what I'm saying. A lot of people, they don't think out what they're saying. And Shelley Finkel is talking about he's monitoring the winner of Usyk and Joshua. Well, let's see if Joshua can win. I believe he can. I believe he will. And let's hope Shelley and Wilder don't mess up the negotiation again between Deontay and Joshua. Let's hope they don't mess it up again. You know what I mean? Because that was just painful last time. All that is painful. The receipts are there. Anyone saying that Joshua ducked Fury or Wilder, all the receipts are there. There's no need to argue. This is what they want. They want arguments. They want the discussion to turn into confusion. That's their tactic in damage controlling the fact that it was never Joshua who screwed up the two opportunities for undisputed fights against either Fury or Wilder. It never was. Now, the reason they get animated is because they can't pull up receipts. I don't need to get animated. I've got the receipts. Maybe Adam Kownacki doesn't need the money. He turned down how much million to fight Anthony Joshua in 2019? And a lot of us assumed he was being saved for Deontay Wilder's comeback this year, while he turned down 1.2 against Derek Chisora. But apparently he's not going to be fighting Wilder. It looks like Robert Helenius has got the Wilder assignment. I'll be looking for receipts on what Kownacki's paycheck is against DAZN. Congratulations to Ray Vargas, new WBC featherweight champion. I actually thought that the Filipino MAGSAYO could retain his belt. I thought he'd just be too energetic, throw too many power shots, but it looked like he neglected the body attack. I think the left hook to the body was there. I think that would have slowed up Vargas. MAGSAYO scored a knockdown. Rocked Vargas on a couple of occasions. I watched the highlights of Frank Martin. I like the way he dealt with Jackson Marinez. Done very well. Errol Spence. Looks like he wants to put his promoter's hat on and make Frank Martin versus Rolly Romero. Perhaps he should concentrate on Crawford versus himself. You want to get Frank Martin a real fight? Forget all this in-house bullcrap, yeah? Rolly can't fight. He got knocked out by Tank, and the guy who Frank Martin beat, Marinez, outboxed Rolly but didn't get the decision because they were fattening Rolly up for Tank. Now, Richard Comey, he knocked out Marinez in less time than Frank Martin did and looked pretty good doing it. How about you give Bob Arum a call and making that fight? Some real fights. So I've been racking my brains on why Amanda Serrano wouldn't take an immediate rematch with Katie Taylor. I mean, you're talking purses that the women don't get in boxing. She cleared over $1 million in the first fight. Well, she's going to clear over $1 million in the second fight. I know she was reluctant to travel to London to fight Katie Taylor a few years back when she was with Lou DiBella. And maybe she was a little apprehensive to fly over to Ireland, to Croke Park for the rematch, because I don't think she'll get a decision out there either. But when you look at the money on offer and the fact that she hurt Katie and it was a very close fight, regardless of how you scored it, the first thing that pops up is that, okay, if I was her, I'd be thinking I can make some adjustments and maybe get her out of there. Or I could be more decisive and actually get the points decision. You take the chance for that kind of money. And then the more I think about it now, I believe network politics stopped the rematch happening. She didn't have no deal with Showtime, but a promoter, Jake Paul, did. So Showtime had no reason to stand in her way from collecting that big purse. But America, in my opinion, is very evil genius, or at least attempting to be very evil genius and calculated, rather than just make the fights happen. So, after their fight, did bigger viewership numbers than Shakur and Oscar Valdez. Sold out the MSG, regardless of what price the tickets were at or anything. Biggest women's event in history of the sport, arguably. I think Showtime sat down with Jake and said, why don't you now get her to fight on your undercards? Now she's got the exposure from fighting Katie in this massive event. We could start building her as an attraction. And there may be financial incentives for Jake Paul to do so. Whether Amanda will benefit out of these incentives, I don't know. And now she's on the undercard taking on someone named Carbajal on the undercard of his fight with Hasim Rahman Jr. I mean, who is Carbajal? Anyone know who Carbajal is? Yeah, some of you do. Some of you hardcores who are into women's boxing know. But most people don't know who she is. I'm not saying she's not a competent fighter, this Carbajal. I don't know, but this is nowhere near a bigger fight as Katie Taylor. But that's not the point. So that's my opinion why Taylor Serrano 2 isn't happening, at least not yet. Maybe they want to try and build her to flagship women's boxing on Showtime, and then perhaps revisit the rematch with Katie Taylor and try and get her over on Showtime if possible, or wait until her contract's out with Eddie. Because that's what they do. Remember, it was Showtime behind the leverage tactics with Wilder and AJ. It was them behind all that. And that failed miserably because of a certain Tyson Fury. Serrano's value is going up. Croke Park apparently are not going to host Katie Taylor's next fight. They wanted Amanda Serrano as the opponent. They're not going to host it apparently now, according to Eddie. And I guess the way things stand now, why would Showtime just throw DAZN another massive event? Is there any coincidence that Jake Paul just started turning against Eddie when he was very pally-pally with Eddie? He just turned against him. Stephen Espinosa's work or influence is in this somewhere, in my opinion. Daily Star. If you lived in Britain for as long as I have, you'd have reservations about quoting the Daily Star for reasons we won't go into right now. But their source doesn't look any less reliable than anywhere else, and they're talking about October the 8th. O2 Arena. DAZN pay-per-view. A catchweight of 156 pounds. Welterweight prospect / contender. Son of British boxing legend Conor BENN in against middleweight contender, son of UK legend, and that is Chris Eubank Jr. Okay, let's get into it. I have no problem with the fight if boxers in general were more active. Fights like this would be good events and good attractions for the sport. The issue is they're both supposed to be contenders in their respective welterweight and middleweight divisions. They've both boxed once this year, and this fight here will likely be their last fights of the year. And, you know, Chris said he injured his hand against Liam, the excuse maker, Williams. So if he's needed a little time to rehabilitate the hand or whatever time recuperation, fair enough. But Conor, I didn't hear he suffered any injuries as he blasted out Van Heerden in 2. What's the matter with boxing? How do you have these prospects blasting people out in 2-3 rounds, and then they don't fight for 6 months after that? Obviously, it's all the legislation now it takes to put on a boxing event. They're both desperate for pay-per-view attractions, even though Eddie's got Joshua and Canelo. He wants more. He wants more. Sky, they want another taste of that Brook and Khan event, which was very successful for them. They want more. How will this do as a box office event? I think it could get a lot of attention. No, it will get a lot of attention. But are they underestimating the boxing fan and what they think the boxing fan wants? They are banking on the casual market to come up good on this one, because they could be underestimating how much the average boxing fan, and it might not even be a hardcore, how much knowledge they have of the sport. Chris Eubank, I think a little too much is made of his losses. 2 points losses. And people make a big deal like, this is the worst thing ever, you've lost twice on points. Both losses to world champions. But a few people are going to be very cynical about this fight. They're going to be asking, why is Eubank taking on a welterweight when he's supposed to be a middleweight contender? He come back down. He came down from 168 to 160. What, to fight welterweights? Why? I thought Conor Benn was aiming to be this welterweight contender and champion. Now, be under no illusion, Conor Benn called Eubank out. He's not being coerced. His dad is supporting his decision. So don't blame this on Eddie, like you blamed Eddie for Kell Brook getting his orbital bone up by Golovkin. No, Brook wanted the £5 million payday, and he took it from Chris Eubank. A lot of people blame the Eubank for missing their payday. No, Kell wanted the payday, and he took the payday. Eddie was more loyal to Kell because they had a better relationship, and the Eubanks may have been pissing him off because, you know, they make some crazy demands and are known to be a little eccentric. This is Conor Benn's choice. And to back that up, here's a Twitter exchange from yesterday between a nutter and Nigel Benn himself. The nutter saying, Brook was never the same after Triple G. Can't believe how moronic Eddie is to do this again at this stage of Conor's career. Nigel Benn himself replied and said, this is what Conor wants, not Eddie. This won't ruin Conor. He's not made like that. Nigel said he's backing his son, win, lose, or draw. They're in it together, right? So, I don't know. I think some of you, there's a lot of adults out there who just find it too boring to deal with the truth. There's a few channels out there who find it too boring to deal with the truth. That's why you see when most of the channels talk about their being objective or logical, I don't listen to them because most of them haven't got the brains to even catch themselves lying to themselves and to others. But people are going to be asking why this fight is being made. And there's going to be people very skeptical, very cynical, thinking, is this just a money-making exercise? Well, of course it's a money-making exercise. They're putting it on pay-per-view. The fight has an angle, the history of the two dads, and they're going to play on that. Play hard on that. A cynical money-making exercise, perhaps. But if you live in the West, where have you been for the last how much years you've been on the planet? Where's your head? It must be up your... This is what big corporations do. Now I'm going to run my mouth right now and say I'm not going to pay for it. And as soon as they bring Nigel and Chris Eubank Sr. into the promotion and there's banter between them, I'm going to have my money ready and I'm going to be paying for it. But right now, I'm going to say no, I'm not paying for it. Boxing is entertainment. The YouTubers and the TikTok crowd, the Triller thing, they've changed boxing. Whether you like it or not, they've changed boxing. They've spotted a gap in the market where the networks, the promotional companies and the alphabet bodies are not delivering as a lot of boxing fans would like. You know, you take Chris Sr. and Nigel out the equation, there's no way this goes on box office. The question is, can they convert all that attention into pay-per-view buys? I have no doubt the O2 Arena will be filled. I don't think it would be much of a stretch them filling out the O2. Not at all. Eubank has done pay-per-view before. He done horrible numbers on ITV when he fought the likes of, is it Reynold Quinlan? Was the Arthur Abraham fight on pay-per-view? Did I pay for the Cannon? No, not the Cannon. Did I pay for the Eubank George Gross fight? Was that paid for on ITV? Or where was that? I can't remember now. I paid for a few of his fights. The James DeGale fight, I paid for that. That was a PBC/ITV Pox and Sports promotion. Flopped. All flopped. The truth is like, Eddie doesn't want fighters languishing around and they can't do pay-per-view. That's why he's been so nonchalant in response to the likes of Chris Billiam Smith, Lawrence Okoli, Liam Smith, and whoever else. They said, yeah, well, I'm going across the sky. I'm going to show you, Eddie. Eddie's like, oh, okay. Because he doesn't want to dip in his pocket to pay out certain fighters. I'm not going to single anyone out. But I'm saying, for example, a lot of them fighters who are going over to Sky, they're getting good purses at Matchroom. Chris Billiam-Smith didn't say, oh, I'm leaving because the purses are bad. No, he left because he wants to headline in Bournemouth. Eddie said that Lawrence Okoli's probably the highest paid cruiserweight out there. Up there with Marius Bradis. I don't know if that's true. Liam Smith, he got $300,000 for his domestic level fight against Anthony Fowler. It's not bad. And he got $1 million for the Jesse Vargas fight. You know, if DAZN can take this event and get anywhere near the $600,000 that Brooke and Khan got on Sky, you bet they'll be pleased. Now, for us with the DAZN subscriptions, the next question is how much events are they going to look to put on pay-per-view? Because they've got an angle on the fight. Not so much what the fighters have done. Who wins the fight? Well, EUBANK has fought the harder competition by far, the bigger man. But BENN seems to be hitting a stride, albeit against, past the sell-by date, fringe contenders. Although Chris Algieri was a former world champion at 140. You know, he was a fringe contender at welter. Van Heerden, he was a fringe contender at welter. He seems to be hitting some kind of stride. BENN, EUBANK employs a lot more movement now. And I think that really could be an issue for BENN. A serious issue. A big man using movement. And I'm sure when necessary he's going to try and wear down BENN with his size advantage, which could be compromised by the catch weight. But of course I'd expect EUBANK to win the fight. Apparently Conor rehydrates up to 20 pounds heavier by the time he's in the ring at 147. The plus for this one is we do have the two major networks for boxing in the country working together. Now, if there's a trickle-down effect, I would go as far to say we can go back to the days when, actually, when Senior and Conor's dads were fighting, like Hearn and Warren. They pitted themselves against each other, with BENN being a Warren fighter early in his career, and EUBANK being a Hearn fighter. And if that happens, it would be great for British boxing. I don't mean to try and sound arrogant or we're going to take over the world, because that's irrelevant. It's taking over your territory. Because there was a stage where BENN and EUBANK and Watson, they didn't need to travel to America. They didn't need to, like the viewing figures they were doing on terrestrial television. They didn't need to travel. They didn't need to call no one out from over there. Although, you know, BENN did his thing out there. And I think that's the way it's going, because if you can get a working relationship with your rival British promoters and put on matches, it's not exactly UFC, but it is self-sustainable. They're actually saying the fight could land on Channel 5. Because obviously Cali and Nice, they manage EUBANK, who's on Sky, but they've got a contract on Channel 5. So it's already making a lot of headlines, and it's not even confirmed or announced yet. It's just business. It's just business. It is what it is. Business with some boxing thrown in. I was glad that Cali got a deal with Channel 5. I was glad when he hooked up the Wasserman thing, because I always knew him and Eddie had a good working relationship, and hopefully that doesn't mess up. Because if you've noticed, Nice never, or Cali, they don't extend themselves to try and make deals with Americans like that. Have you noticed that? And that's because it's too much headache and it's too much hassle. There's too much arrogance and egos. When they were doing the Sauerland promotion things, they just stayed in Europe, in Germany, in the UK. It was Denver, the brainchild of the WBSS tournaments. And who didn't participate? Which promoters didn't participate? Which networks didn't participate? After losing out on the Usyk Joshua fight, DAZN will be keen to get on. And this will be their first pay-per-view event in the UK. I'm not thrilled at the prospect of having to pay for it, but we'll see. We'll see. On the undercard of Triple G versus Canelo, Amo Williams, undefeated middleweight prospect versus Kieran Conway. That's a good scrap. It's a good scrap. Looking forward to that. Also, Bam Rodriguez intends to stay active and busy. And this is why he's blowing up in the world so quickly. Active, young fighter, looking sharp, buzzing, he's enthusiastic. And there are a section of boxing fans, which I'm in that corner, who are thoroughly impressed by that. And it's got nothing to do with his Mexican heritage or playing him against African American fighters or none of that. Got nothing to do with that at all. So I like the kid. He takes on Israel Gonzalez. At first I thought it was Roman Gonzalez and I was getting really excited. But they're talking about matching up Roman Gonzalez with Kazuta Ioka, who looked pretty good in a stand-up boxing match against Donny Nietes yesterday, retaining his WBO super flyweight title. I'm not convinced like it wouldn't take much for the likes of ESPN or DAZN that much money so they could get the rights to show these fights like Nietes and Ioka. A lot of people would have liked to have seen that. I don't think the Japanese would have said, nah, we're going to give you the rights. Why not? I mean, look at the hour it's on. It's on an awkward hour in the day. I saw a lot of people on Twitter struggling to find a stream for it, and it just seems senseless, really. But I'll be looking forward to Roman versus Ioka. That would be a very good scrap. The winner could take on BAM.